hold this hearing and review some of the conduct of some of the employees of EPA. Important responsibility in that agency to carry out. I had the opportunity to chair civil service on this subcommittee on this panel some years ago. And I'm a supporter of the civil service system, and it was set up decades and decades ago to protect civil servants, public employees from abuse, being politically abused, relieved of their positions. Isn't that pretty much the case, Mr. Myberg and Mr. Sullivan? Yeah.
Yes, Congressman, it is. And that's very important that we make sure that the system is not subject to
not rigged to take hard-working people and then to cast them out on some political basis, and I think that should be protected. However, the reports we have here, I have 12 pages of some of the most egregious abuses. I can't find any instance in which anyone was fired. Did you say there were 15,000 EPA employees? Is that correct? More than that. And,
I'm sorry, yes, that's correct.
Did you say, Mr. Sullivan, you have 280 investigators or
no, sir. We have
staff?
We had 360 5 years ago. Now we're down to 289.
289 staff. And what do they do?
Well, we have investigations.
So they investigate.
Some auditors, some evaluate.
Within the 200 and, I'm sorry, but they're investigating, looking at reviewing the conduct of the 15,000 EPA employees?
I have 50 agents right now that can
50?
do
Okay, we have
investigations.
Them. How many, of the, last year, 2015, how many people were fired from EPA?
I'd have to defer to Mr. Myberg. I don't know.
Mr. Byberg, how many were fired?
I don't know, Congressman.
Were any ever fired for for misconduct?
Yes.
Can you supply? Do you think it's more than just my fingers and my toes?
Congressman, of this, there were, and I'm going I want to be clear about my answer.
I tell you that almost nobody, well, nobody here got fired. The only one actually dismissed was the contractor. Now, what's troubling is some of the offenses, and then I just heard the deal cut to pay $55,000 in a settlement. Was that true, Mr. Sullivan? You said you weren't involved in the settlement.
That's correct. From my recollection,
was that the pedophile or the
yes,
that
was the child molester.
So we're paying child molesters $55,000. Nobody gets fired. Now here's one EPA official in Washington, GS level 15. GS level 15 at DC is getting a minimum of $125,000. Here's the, okay. This guy sat around for years, for the past several years, and watched porno. They're getting $125,000. And actually, I think he's still on the job. Must be a great job where you could just sit around, collect $125,000 a year. Here's a $90,000 GS 13, at least $90,000 here at DC. A search of the employee's EPA issued computer found 507 pornographic images, as well as a pornographic story written by the employee containing a description of it. But I won't go into all that for public consumption here. The employee was issued a notice of proposed removal but retired. So nobody gets fired. The way out is most people either retire. Civil service was not set up to protect these folks. It was protect folks against political manipulation. Now this has to be demoralizing to thousands and thousands of hardworking EPA officials to see these people who either are involved in misconduct, they were stealing money, and I can't find a single instance in which anyone was fired. They mostly retired. And when they retire, they get a pretty good retirement, don't they? They get their regular retirement. There's no penalty to their compensation when they retire, is there?
Congressman, under current law, there is no penalty for, people can retire or resign at any time.
And that is the MO. You steal, you sit around and watch porno, you get convictions outside, and you're either voluntarily resign and go to retirement, but nobody gets fired. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman from from Florida, and I recognize the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me try to understand, Mr. Sullivan. There are 14 open cases, is that right?
That's not 100% accurate, Mr. Cummings. We have 14 cases pending at the agency in which we've already submitted the report.